This is going to be a big one. When you think of vinyl records, there's a number of genres that come immediately to mind, but classic rock has got to be up towards the top of the list.
Oh yeah, 100%. And this was tough for me too.
Yeah,
Like,
this was super tough.
This I think so far out of all the top fives we've done, this has been my hardest one, I think.
Can I ask you an organizational genre sorting question, which is, what do you count as classic rock?
See, that's, to me, classic rock is like 60s, 70s. That's what I consider classic rock. Maybe some 80s, maybe like early 80s, but 60s and 70s are like what I consider to be classic rock.
So like Pearl Jam and Nirvana.
Not, well, see, but it's funny you say that. I was flipping around on the radio the other day on the local classic rock station, and they were playing Nirvana, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yep. Well, the definition has changed, man. The definition has changed.
I'm like, you're telling me a record I went to the record store and bought the day it came out is a classic rock record? No. And they played like Guns N' Roses too, like something off of Appetite for Destruction. And I'm like, no, it's not classic rock, bro.
I too played it pretty classic rock for my top 5 classic rock, which is what we're about to get into here. So
60s, 70s for mine.
This is a big topic though, and this is one of those that going to take you a lot of thinking about what you want to do for these things. So yeah,
it did, and I have to take some umbrage with you because you stole 2 of mine.
Oh, did I?
I didn't want to cross over with you, so I had to pick something else. But yes, you did. Two of your picks should have been on my 5, but you had your list up first before I had mine together. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to cross over, so I'll pick something else. So yeah.
What's funny about the top 5 classic rock records is I tend to organize by pop rock and then classic rock. And to me, classic rock tends to be somewhere in the range of about 65 to 80, which with a few exceptions there. Like for those bands who released albums afterwards, they fit in fine too. Me personally, I keep my Zappa collection in classic rock as opposed to any other kind of thing. Because I had to figure out, where am I going to stick this many records? And so classic rock is where my Zappa goes. If it sounds good coming out of the 8-track of your 1985 Chevette, it belongs on this list.
Meet the versatile 1985 Chevette. Standard comfort and convenience features include cut pile carpeting, handy map pockets, and an AM radio.
There you go, exactly. I'm going to start with my number 5, and this is an album that I will die on the hill of. I'm going to die on the hill and say this is the best debut album that has ever been put out, ever. And I want anybody to fight me in the comments on that. Because I will die on this hill. And it is Boston. The self-titled debut album from Boston, and this is like the Walmart exclusive repress. It's on this blue, but whatever. This album, just amazing. Like I said, I will die on the hill. This is the best debut album ever from any band, any genre, any band. Tell me another debut album better than this Boston. I mean, it's got Foreplay, Long Time. It's got what is all on here? More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Foreplay a Long Time, Rock and Roll Band, Smoking, Hitching a Ride, Something About You, and Let Me Take You Home Tonight. The whole album, like, there's no clunkers on this album. So if you can name me a better debut album, do it.
You're killing me, man. You're killing me. I don't want to interrupt you. Also, I love that record. I love that record. I'm not trying to actually dispute your claim, other than to say I don't think that's true. I bet I could come up with a list of albums that are debut albums that are as good. Let me just say as good. I mean, I'm not trying to say better, because I think that is an excellent debut album for sure. But I think there's equal. And I would actually, let me just off the top of my head say Supertramp. Supertramp's debut. I'm going to put that one on there.
I mean, honestly, maybe that's a top 5 we should do.
Yeah.
Debut albums, but like I said, I will die on the hill and say that's got to be.
It's a real.
If it's not the best, it's up there. Yeah.
Samandia is their debut album.
Yeah, it's just one of those rare albums where there's nothing bad on that album. Like, every song on there is just. Now, of course, they weren't all released as singles, so they all weren't "quote unquote" hits. But there's nothing bad on that album. It's such a good album, and that pressing sounds really good too. But
cool.
So there you go. My number 5, self-titled from Boston.
My number 5 is one of those that I treat with kid gloves, and this is my good pressing of Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers with the zipper that still has most of its shrink wrap in it. And I'm going to open it up actually for this show here today.
But for those keeping the track at home, this is one that would have been on my top 5, but it's
an amazing album. And just for the record, the reason I got this little cotton here is because if you put this in your record collection with that metal zipper there, it will damage whatever it's next to. So instead, I just use a little piece of cotton, and that largely seems to take care of it. But this is a really wonderful pressing
all the time.
In my opinion, one of the greatest classic rock albums of all time. I don't even know. It's what the Muscle Shoals recording 100%. Studio and everything. It's just it's got songs like Wild Horses, Can't You Hear Me Knocking, You Gotta Move, Sister Morphine, Dead Flowers, Moonlight Mile, Sway. I mean, the list goes on. This does have Brown Sugar on it, which is these days somewhat of a more controversial. There's people who are like, wait a second, what's that song about? That kind of thing. But still, classic song as well, and classic album for sure.
Such a good album. I agree. Yeah. Wild Horses is probably one of my. It's in my top 5 favorite classic rock songs ever. So good pick. Yeah, like I said, that one would have been on my list, but since you had it, I was just like, I guess I can't use that because I didn't want to do a crossover. So
it's so classic in terms of classic rock that it was almost too easy a pick. It's been used. I mean, some of the guitar hooks have been used to basically define what rock is.
Right. So my number 4 is going to be a band we just mentioned, and that's going to be Supertramp, and this is A Breakfast in America.
And they send me away, teach me how to be sensible, logical, responsible, practical. And then they show me a world where I could be so dependable, clinical, intellectual, cynical.
This is a later repress. I don't have an OG of this, but this is another one of those albums where you look at the track list and you're just like, Okay, great song, great song, great song, great song. We got the logical song, Goodbye Stranger, Breakfast in America, Take the Long Way Home. Like, I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, there's some songs on here that aren't that great. Like, what is it? Just Another Nervous Wreck. I mean, it's okay, but, you know,
All Supertramp albums are good. Honestly, I don't think there's a bad Supertramp album. There's some I like more than others. I like that one only a little less than some of the others, only because that one is a little more commercial. It was more of a big commercial success than some of the others, so it maybe leans a little heavier into the pop side. But
it was between that and Crime of the Century. I was like kind of tossing those up, and I actually listened to them both, and then I kind of gave the edge to Breakfast in America because I just thought, okay, I'm kind of digging this album a little more. Not to say Crime of the Century is bad, like we said, like Supertramp is an amazing band. But it's just I kind of gave the edge to that. So
yeah, it was perfectly great choice. We're talking classic rock. Don't get much more classic than that. So.
Right, exactly.
Unless maybe you're talking about my number 4, Doors' Strange Days, which predates Breakfast in America by quite a bit, and was arguably one of the most famous classic rock albums of all time, and still to this day has sort of a sound and vibe that is largely unemulated and unmatched. I put this one out over the others, in particular because of the closing song, When the Music's Over, which is probably among the wildest that the Doors got, and is just an epic of a song that very few bands could ever pull off, and that's kind of what I mean in terms of this album.
I would put, I mean, not that that's a bad album, that is a great choice, but I would put LA Woman over Strange Days. I like LA Woman just a little better, but then again, you're talking about the Doors, this classic, a classic rock band, right? So, great pick.
Let me do a little bit of a Zappa impression, which is to say, what Trek doesn't know is I spent hours debating between whether it should be LA Woman and Strange Days. Yeah.
Did you? Well, see, there you go. See?
Yeah.
We're on the same wavelength.
I struggled, man. The struggle was real. But ultimately, Strange Days came first. And Jim Morrison was in better shape for the recording of Strange Days. And so those are the two reasons why I put that one.
What are we on? Number 3? I am going with Meatloaf and Bat Out of Hell.
But when the night is over, like a bat out of hell, I'll be gone, gone, gone. But like a bat out of hell, I'll be gone when the morning comes. But when the day is done and the sun goes down and the moonlight shining through, like a sinner.
Not too many bad songs on this album. About a 3A bad. Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. This is a Target exclusive pressing, so it's on this red marble. I do have an OG of this as well. I just, for some reason, grabbed this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can find originals of that. Maybe in not the greatest shape, but real cheap.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But took the words right out of my mouth. That's another great song out of here. But it's just that classic Meatloaf Jim Steinman connection where Meatloaf is singing all of the epic Jim Steinman songs, and this is like a rock opera, if you will, a little bit, because you know how Steinman's music is very, very epic and very opera-ish, and so just a great album. Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, my number 3.
not everyone's going to agree on everything in terms of classic rock. I think especially in classic rock, you can get some polarized opinions.
It's true.
I kind of can't stand Meatloaf.
I was lucky enough to like
Yeah.
see him in concert, and he did put on a heck of a show. Like the whole from start to end, he was concentrated on what he was doing, and it was like an epic event the whole way through. So, but yeah, Meatloaf is one of those very polarizing acts. There's like it's like you either love the guy or you hate the guy. It's like there's no.
And to be fair,
and
I
it's-
fully understand that there are plenty of bands I love that other people would say the exact same
Right.
thing about. I totally
Right,
get it.
well, yeah.
It's fine. So
Yeah.
you know.
No, it is. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think what pretty much everyone can agree on here is my number 3, which is Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. I don't know too many people who have really heard this album who can't appreciate it in some way, shape, or form. And my copy is all ring-worn and what have you, but it's 1970s pressing. And I paid, what did I pay? Where can I get this? I can't. Anyway, I paid $8 for this. I think Dark Side of the Moon we'll probably end up having a whole episode someday about Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh yeah.
But me
Easily we
personally,
could.
I've heard so much Pink Floyd and I've heard so many albums, and for me, Wish You Were Here is the one that I still pull out sometimes and enjoy because of its guitar solos and songwriting and production and everything else.
That's the other one that would have been on my list. So that's my favorite Floyd album, hands down. So yeah. Such a good album.
I don't want to be a negative Nancy on this episode, but let me bring up this because this is a great point. I love Pink Floyd. I mean, they're one of the greatest bands of all time, unquestioned. Whatever, it's all good.
Hands down. Yeah.
Do I ever want to hear Pink Floyd again? I honestly don't know that the answer is yes that much. Only because how many times do I need to listen to Dark Side of the Moon ever again? How many times do I need to listen to Wish You Were Here again? I honestly don't know. You know.
They are one of the, and that's kind of the curse of like these classic rock bands. Some of these bands get played to death. If you listen to any classic rock radio, be it terrestrial, be it on Sirius, you're gonna hear the same songs by these bands over and over and over and over, and then you're like, really, like
I can hit play in my head and just play Wish You Were Here at this point, pretty much.
Oh yeah, yeah. But now it's funny you say that though. But Wish You Were Here is one of those albums I'll play probably about once a month though. I will often just like, especially if I'm doing something around the house, like I'm cleaning or whatever. I'll just throw that on, and then it's just like, and then I just every once in a while I'll stop and I'll be like, God, this is so good. You know, it's like.
To go a little deep, I feel that Wish You Were Here is really the album where Roger Waters took control, and not in a good way. But I also think it's Pink Floyd at its funkiest. Because the latter part of Shine On You Crazy Diamond is almost downright funky for Pink Floyd.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah,
I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah. Great choice. Like I said, that would have been on my list, but I didn't want to have a crossover. So in its place, because that actually would have been number 2 for me. In place of that, I put the Jimi Hendrix Experience and their first album, Are You Experienced? I mean, what do you have to say about Jimi Hendrix? I mean, there's really nothing I can say that hasn't been said about Hendrix. This is a later repress, because originals of this, they're not like bad priced, but they're just beat to crap. I
Right,
have yet to.
right.
I would love to
Yeah.
find an OG of this, but I haven't found one that has been in decent enough quality to actually buy. They're just always beat up because this is this was 60, 68, 67, I think, something like that, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, it's so hard to find OGs of this that aren't beat up. But
Yeah.
I love Hendrix. Like, then again, hands down, if we ever do a list of top 5 guitarists,
We
he's
will.
going to be hard pressed not to be number one. I don't think,
I think we should do a list where we have to come together and make a list.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Because that'll be
Yeah.
tough, but that'll be fun. Because we're gonna have
will,
we're gonna
yeah.
have opinions, I'm sure. So
Yeah, we will.
speaking of records that are in bad shape, but I purchased it anyway because the record's in good shape. My number 2 is certainly one of the most classic rock albums of all time, and that is Santana Abraxas. So this album is not in the greatest shape. You can see there's just a lot of kind of wear on it, but the vinyl record itself sounds really good. And this is an original 1970 Santa Maria pressing
Oh, wow.
of this particular
Nice.
album, which is an excellent
that
version
actually
of this album.
Doesn't look
So-
that bad. I mean,
the
that cover
record
doesn't look
itself
that
is in
bad,
great
actually.
shape.
Yeah.
It does have a
Yeah.
little bit of wear and tear on it, but it plays.
but I mean,
very
for an
well.
OG copy, yeah.
Let's take it apart
But
from the
it's-
vinyl and talk about the music, though. The music of Santana Abraxas is otherworldly, out of this world, angelic, virtuosic, however you say that.
Yeah.
Full of virtuosity. Incredible musicianship, incredible songwriting, and the feelings and emotions. It arguably changed rock music forever.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fantastic.
And that is one that sadly I can say I do not own. I need to pick up a copy of that.
Mhm.
Wait, that's like one of those I was kind of ashamed when I saw your list and I'm like, why did I not own a copy of that on vinyl? I have a CD copy of it, but I don't own it on vinyl. And I'm like, how do I not own that on vinyl? What am I doing with my collecting life and not own that on vinyl?
Well,
So-
thankfully you can find original pressings like the
Oh, yeah.
Hendrix relatively cheap, getting more expensive by the month here, but still
Yeah.
relatively cheap. And it's great guitar playing. It's one of the most best classic rock guitar playing you'll hear. It's really good stuff. It also, I really like how, because it was such a big commercial success, it allowed, I think, the record industry at that time to invite a lot more people in and take chances on a lot more musical acts. Similar to Miles Davis' Bitches Brew had a similar effect where it allowed other people
Yeah.
to get released that never would have been probably even under consideration prior. So its impact on rock music as a whole is also really intense.
Then again, in the conversation for the best guitarist, Santana's got to be in that conversation too. Number 1 for me is going to be, I was probably maybe 9 or 10 the first time I heard this album, and I was just like, okay, I don't know what I just listened to, but I want to hear more of that. And that is Black Sabbath, the self-titled debut.
What is this that stands before me?
Nice.
I'm like, the first time I heard this, I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is, but when first, like you put the needle down on this, you hear the rain, and then you hear the doomy just guitar work, and then the scream of Ozzy, and then you're just like, oh my God, like I'm in another world now. So yeah, easily my number one. This album brought metal. Like this was heavy metal before even anybody even knew what heavy metal was, and it was doom metal before doom metal existed. And it's just like, it is so doomy and so just heavy, and it's like such sludge and such, and like you said, you just feel like everything is coming from like the depths of hell, and you're like, oh my God, what is going on? Help me, I need help because I'm not going to survive this. It's just, yeah. So just picture 10-year-old me just getting my mind blown by that, and I was like, okay, that I think got me into metal, and why I'm still a metalhead to this day was I can quote unquote blame that on Black Sabbath.
I love your number one pick, but I disagree with it because my number one pick is the album of theirs I like better. That would be Black Sabbath Paranoid.
Going home late last night. Suddenly I got a fright. Yeah, I looked through a window and surprised what I saw. Fairy boots and dancing with the dwarf. Oh, right now.
I love the original debut
Again.
album of Black Sabbath, but Paranoid, man. Paranoid
Again,
is just...
it was
yeah.
I had to do an A/B. I put them both on, and I'm like, I'm gonna give a little bit slight edge just because I think of the reaction I remembered getting the first time I heard it. I think that's why it gave me the edge. But Paranoid, not a bad pick at all. Like Paranoid, amazing album on its own too.
A much bigger... They all sold millions and millions at this point, but
Oh, yeah.
Black Sabbath Paranoid was the much more commercially successful record. It's the one that cemented their career. What I like about this, though, is either way we're saying Black Sabbath is the best classic rock band. Is that what we're saying? I think we're saying that.
I think that is what we're saying, and I don't think that we're wrong in that aspect. Either one of those albums, we're not wrong with saying that is the best classic rock albums of all time, right there.
Fuck the Beatles.
You know how you were controversial before. Not a big Beatles fan.
I actually love the Beatles too. I'm purely joking there. But look at our number one though. It's Black Sabbath.
Right.
Like, we didn't.
Right.
I put Rolling Stones in, but
Right.
we don't have any Beatles in there. There's a whole bunch of stuff we don't have in there. You know.
I shocked myself. I didn't put any Led Zeppelin on this list too,
Ooh,
because
you're right.
I think should Zeppelin be on this list?
Probably.
Absolutely. But actually, what I should have done instead of my Meatloaf, I should have had a Zeppelin album. I think.
I'll get behind that.
Probably,
put Led Zeppelin 2 on there. Put Led Zeppelin 2 on your your Meatloaf.
Yep. Black Sabbath, the best classic rock band of all time. We've determined that on this episode.